In this class, we are going to learn how to show the HTML content in Visual Builder page as is. If you see over here, there is a panel which is having one Oracle logo and title of the job and then the short description about the job role. So what you see over here under the panel, it is the HTML content and I have not created it in the Visual Builder. Suppose if you are getting this HTML content from some REST API, or if you are storing this HTML content in the Fusion lookup or any other lookup, and at the runtime, if you are getting the HTML content and if you want to show the same in the Visual Builder page as is without modification, then we will see how to do the same in this class. I have created a very simple Redwood template based application over here. If you closely observe, I have just placed this component that is bind DOM. So it is nothing but if you just search over here oj bind or simply the bind, let me just search it over here, you will find this bind DOM. So this is the same advanced component I have dragged and dropped it over here. Only parameter it accepts is the config. So in order to understand more about this config, we can look at the OJ documentation. So here is the OJ documentation that is under the framework, binding and control flow, and then the DOM binding. Suppose if you want to show the HTML content as is on the Visual Builder page using the OJ component, we can make use of OJ bind DOM. Just make sure you are surrounding it with one div segment or with the span. Suppose if I show you over here in the code view, I'm just having the div segment. Under that, I'm having this OJ bind DOM and then followed by that the config. And here I'm passing the HTML content which I will be getting from one REST API. For demonstration purpose, I have hard coded it in the JavaScript. So let me see how we have to generate this config. First and the foremost thing is config is of type. If you see over here in the JS, so this is the config object. So it should have one view and you can make use of htmlutils, that is the class available in JavaScript, and then you can pass your string. So in this case, they have passed the HTML tags, that is OJ label, input text, and so forth. In our case, we will be passing the HTML tag in order to show this content. So using this, we can pass this over here, that is string to node array, and it will convert to a view and it will create one object, that is a config object. So data, it is optional. If you want, you can send. Most important thing is config object should have this view. It should be making use of htmlutils, string to node array. This is one more function within this class. And then you have to pass your HTML content. So let's see how we can make use of the same in the Visual Builder. What I have done is I have created a VB enter event over here. Let me just go to the action chain. First and the foremost thing is I'm getting the HTML content. So this step is nothing but it is just extracting the HTML content. In your case, you might be calling the Fusion REST API or any other API, maybe the ORDS API. You might be storing this HTML content like in the database table column or in the Fusion lookup, integration lookup. There could be a number of possibilities where you will be using this HTML content, or you could be getting the HTML content as a response from some API, which you have to show to the user as is, as written by the API. So in my case, what I have done is I have created one JavaScript function. So this function get sample HTML does simple thing, that is it returns the HTML content. So this is the content with the help of which I am showing the Oracle logo, job title, and the short description. So this is what it does. So this function will just simply return the HTML content. So once we receive the HTML content, next is we have to assign the value to the HTML content variable which I have created over here, which is of type any. So what I'm doing is I'm calling one more function. So for that, input will be the HTML content. Suppose if you are getting the HTML content from the REST API, you have to pass that content as is to this get config function which I have written over here. Let me go to the JavaScript. So this is the very simple JavaScript function. As I told, its function is just to return the object which is of config type. We have studied the config type is an object which will have just the view key, and the value will be making use of our HTML content and which will be converted to the view with the help of HTMlutils class and the string to node array function within that. So using that, it will return the config object that is of view key and the value. So this value, what is returned from the function, we are assigning to HTML content, and the same I am assigning to this one, that is the config, that is same variable HTML content. So like this, we can show the HTML content as is using the bind DOM component in Visual Builder application. So we don't have to decode HTML content again and remap to the Visual Builder components again, like the input text, so and so forth. As is, we can show to the user what is written from the API or from some lookup.